Hi, so I'm sitting with Lesley Mort, who is I would like to say, the brains behind Paul Mort and the business brains. I couldn't give you an introduction as good as what you'll be able to do yourself. So do you want to tell everybody kind of who you are, what you do, and where you kind of came from?
Well, so like you say, Paul Mort's my husband. You probably heard of Paul. He does mindset coaching, and I accidentally ended up in Paul's business. When you say the brains behind the business, well, I would say I probably act more of a CEO kind of role, where obviously Paul's amazing at being the front stage, great at marketing, great at coaching, great at being in front of the camera, and I'm more backstage, making sure everything ticks along. As I suppose my background is a little bit more corporate, and I have a little bit more of a typical business kind of background, whereas, like I say, Paul's great at marketing and selling. I'm kind of the one who does all the boring business stuff in our business, so yeah.
But it needs to be done, otherwise we get nowhere.
Yeah.
So obviously, I know you started as in legal side of things as well, didn't you? Was it PGS law you were originally?
So originally, so I started. I worked at Dickinson Dees. Actually, it's not called Dickinson Dees now. It's called something else on the quayside. And qualified as a solicitor. To qualify as a solicitor, you have to work in all the different fields. But I ended up doing property law and did that for years really, and actually something that I really enjoyed. But then when the property market went,
proverbial.
Yeah, I think it was around about 2009. I ended up doing litigation, landlord and tenant litigation, and kind of gradually started having to do shit that I hated, and kind of fell out of love with that career a little bit. And it just happened that I also fell pregnant with my first son, Max, kind of around that time. He was born in 2011, January 2011. And when I went on maternity leave to have Max, it was just at the same time as Paul's business was like going through the roof. It was taking off. He couldn't cope with all the... I mean, he was great at getting loads of new clients, but basically just couldn't cope with anything. So around that, while I was off on maternity leave with Max, I was also running the back end of Paul's business, and then eventually just kind of fell into that role and realised that I didn't really want to go back to the law and get paid almost peanuts for doing shit that I hated. And kind of fell into this and went from there really. And obviously as the business grew, my role grew, and I've kind of morphed into whatever it is that the business needs, I suppose.
Well, let's go back to the kind of the very early beginning of it, and because I've known you since we were probably 15-year-old, 16-year-old, knowing your family as well. So let's go back to the start of it, when Paul was kind of starting off on and we're not going to be talking about Paul much, but it's the start of the journey. And obviously he started with the fitness side of things. Now I've bear in mind, I've known Paul since we were knee high with Grasshopper, and I know exactly what he's like, and he started off with the fat kid at Davy Road, and then obviously the blossoming guy that he is today. But he couldn't have done that without the back end function and everything being in place.
I mean, even looking back now, when he was doing the boot camps, I was still doing all the finance.
Yeah, right.
While I was working full time as a solicitor, I was still doing all these finance stuff and processing all the payments for the customers and doing his accounts and bookkeeping and all of that. So I kind of like, now you mention it, I've always been involved in kind of that part of the business. Obviously, as you know, if anyone knows Paul, his ADHD is like crazy. And he just hasn't got the attention span for any of that kind of stuff. So it's always been me who's done the accounts. And obviously, accounts is something that you learn in when you're doing the law. You do company accounts and things like that. So I had an understanding of that. And obviously, events. We always used to do events and stuff when he was doing the fitness camp as well. So I used to organise all of that as well. So I suppose, even going back as far as that, which was when he must have been 21, I must have been 18, 19.
Yeah, we would have been, because I remember when we were at a stag do in Leeds, and he came down. He didn't drink because he was doing his training course for his PT.
Yeah.
The weekend, like the week after. I think it might have been Eddie's. Was it Eddie's stag do? Might have been. As he told me years and years ago.
So we're talking like 20.
Oh, easy.
Over 20 years ago.
Yeah, easy.
And like I say, I must have been about 19 or something like that, and I've been involved in this business ever since. So yeah, it's been a journey.
One challenge, because we're going to come on to challenges, and it's a big thing that I kind of look at, and how people are going to get over them, and what's potentially going to come, and how you've getting over them. One of the biggest challenges I'm going to ask you is husband and wife.
Yeah.
So where does the break come from husband and wife and family to then business partners and then keeping him accountable?
Do you know what? Loads of people ask us this, and I think because we've done it since the beginning, we've kind of just figured out what works for us. Like, I know what he's good at, he knows what I'm good at. So we do never step on each other's toes. Like, there's very clear lines about, right, he deals with the marketing, and I know he knows best about that, so I just let him crack on with that. And I deal with the accounts, the staff, all the fulfillment kind of stuff, and he knows that I'm better at that than him. So we never argue about work in that sense. I think probably something that husband and wife, it's kind of like, when do you have downtime and not talk about work? And there are times when I think, look, we never talk about problems at home, because I think, you don't want to, if I'm worrying about something, I don't want to verbalise that to him, so then he starts worrying. I think that's a bit shit. Do you know what I mean? So if I'm worrying about work, we definitely don't talk about that at home. We'll talk about that when we get to work, in the meeting or in the normal environment. But exciting things, I think when you value business, you can't help not talk about, get excited about, oh, we're going to this event and we're doing this, so we do talk about work at home. But I think just having a line between, like, let's not complain about work at home, let's not put on each other at work, but we get excited about things and we can't help not talking about it. So and when you run a business, it becomes part of your life. It's not just a 9 to 5 and you come home and you forget about it. It's just part of your life. So and even the kids talk about it, and the kids like come to events and they get excited about coming to things. It's just part of our family business. So I think when you value business, there's not a switch off.
Yeah.
So just getting the balance right, I suppose.
Do you find kind of when you're self-employed, because in essence, I know you're a partnership, but you're self-employed. You never switch off. You can't switch off. Whether you're on holiday and whatever, you can't switch off. There's always a thought pattern in the back of your mind thinking, right, what am I going to do? What's going to come next? Where we're at? What's happening at this point?
I think you've got to have a certain personality though, because that drives me. It excites us. If you could go the other way and worry, and it could consume you. But you've got to just kind of I actually seek out challenge. It excites us. I like to have a problem to solve. That's the way my brain works. If my brain hasn't got a problem to solve, it'll create a problem that doesn't exist and try and solve that. It's just the way that I think certain people are built.
You've mentioned challenges, because what you like to kind of overcome challenges. Do you want to tell people what challenges you've overcame? Because I know that you were doing the weightlifting as well, which is, so you do very unusual stuff to what other people might do, and that. I remember we did the 4x4 40 years.
Yes, we did, running at midnight.
Yeah, that's right. 2 in the morning down the coast road. That's right.
Yeah, like I say, I like to seek out challenge that kind of inspires us, that makes us grow, and I think obviously part of our business is about setting goals and being the best. Which sounds cheesy, isn't it? But being the best version of yourself and continuing to grow and continuing to challenge you. I think it builds a sense of confidence and self-esteem if you're constantly achieving things. So it's something that I'm quite passionate about.
You push yourself to the barrier.
Setting myself challenges and just so for example, at the minute, I'm training for a triathlon because I couldn't swim, and I was like, what I can run, and I don't know if I'm not great at cycling, but it's not something that scares us. But I was like, what can I not do, and what can I set myself a challenge? So I have to become something else. I have to learn something new. And I just think that for personal growth and self-esteem and confidence, you always have to be kind of chasing that next thing. I think it's just something that, it's in me. I feel you get I almost feel like you go backwards if you're not moving forwards. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not in business as well, but I think also in your personal life, if you can set yourself goals and achieve things, it makes you feel like you can achieve anything. I genuinely do believe to a degree you can achieve anything you set your mind out if you're willing to put the work in.
Agree. It adds to the work-life balance for you as well, because technically you've got 3 kids at home. I know you've got 2, but it's pretty much 3 in fairness. And then obviously you've got your challenges yourself. You've got the business to run. but then you always set yourself the next target. So obviously, I think before we did the 4x4x48, you'd never really ran before as well.
No. Well, I've always been quite a good kind of like a 5k is my comfort zone really. That 4x4 thing was just horrendous for me because Well, I think we did it for Stoney, didn't we?
We did.
And I knew that they were going to do something to raise money for Stoney, but I didn't know what it was. And when they dropped it, I was like, oh, I've committed to doing this now. I've got to do it. I hadn't really trained for it and stuff, and I found it horrendous. But again, achieving something that you think you can't do, gives you a great sense of accomplishment, I think, and just something that,
And when's the triathlon? And how far are you doing?
So, I've never actually said this.
Have you not? Right, okay. We don't have to tell you.
The ultimate goal is to do a half Ironman.
Right, wow.
I think an Ironman's ridiculous and probably is not good for my kind of old body. I think it would probably be more of a. I think I'd probably end up getting injured or exhausted. So a half Ironman's probably the ultimate goal for us.
Yeah.
I've signed up to a sprint in June, which is just. So the biggest challenge for me is the swim. I can't swim at the minute. I can swim, don't get us wrong, like a granny, but I can't do like Olympic swimming.
We also take lessons, aren't you, as well?
I am,
because you're all about learning.
And I'm getting better.
Yeah.
Getting better. So the first one that I've signed up for was a sprint, and it's a 400 metre swim, which is nothing really. But for me, that's still a challenge. The running and the cycling is not something that worries us. It's the swim and the Ironman. Something ridiculous like the swim. It's like miles. For me, I can't see how I can actually do that. So that's the kind of the goal, I suppose.
So when we're looking at challenges on business as well, what challenges have you had over the period of time that you've been in business, which is 20 odd years, which you will have had challenges. What did you kind of do to overcome them, and what do you try and put in place moving forward so then challenges don't become challenges any longer?
There's constantly challenges. You overcome one and something else comes up, and it's just a constant roller coaster, I think, business. Probably my biggest, so obviously COVID was a challenge for everybody, not just for us as a business. Everybody kind of shit their pants a little bit, didn't they? Were like, oh my God. And actually, looking back from a business point of view, it was great for our business because people had more time, more money to spend on personal development. And actually, as a business, the business grew during COVID. Yeah. But from a mindset point of view, for a good 6 months, everyone thought it was like shit. What's going to happen? Everybody's going to. So for COVID for us, and also a lot of our businesses, in-person events, which we couldn't do. Yeah. And then there's the worry, people join for these in-person events, are they going to leave because they're not getting what they paid for? So we had to be creative by putting on events online, but also making it feel more than just a sitting at home on Zoom kind of thing. We sent out event boxes, and overcoming challenges is coming up with creative ideas as to what can we do in this situation to make it different, make it better, you should constantly kind of looking to improve, I think. Yeah. So COVID was definitely a challenge for us as a business. Obviously, as you know, Paul suffered with mental health problems in the past, and that was a challenge personally for me, trying to deal with that, also making sure that the business didn't go under, making sure he was able to deliver what people had paid him for coaching, and he was rock bottom. So we at that time we couldn't afford to refund people. The money had been gone. So making sure that we didn't go under during that period as well was a challenge, and obviously also emotionally from my point of view, kind of getting over that. So running a business of it, you've had health problems yourself, and having that pressure and also having a business on top, that's kind of difficult. More recently, I think my biggest challenge has been staffing. I think probably every business as they grow goes through that.
It does,
that's a constant. We've had problems with staff where we've had to let people go, and that's been difficult on all parties. And I think probably from a personal point of view, I've had to grow as a leader. Not naturally what you would consider to be a leader. Like you see Paul, and he's high dominance. He's stand there and inspire people, whereas I'm more of a quiet kind of. And I had some coaching on becoming a leader actually, and find my own way. So I'm more of a coachy kind of asking questions and how can I support you, and
everyone's got their own style.
Yeah. So I've had to find my own style and something that works for me in terms of kind of inspiring staff, keeping staff accountable, that kind of thing. That's something that I've had to work on myself. And most recently, we've changed the way that we make sales. We always used to do this kind of launch process, and we've actually, which is exhausting. We were finding that exhausting every quarter, having to do a big launch, and then we were, how can we do this a different way so that we're not constantly like up and down? It's like bipolarism, up and down and up and down. Yeah. How can we kind of just make it a bit more steady? So
because I've known the two of you for that long, and I've kind of been with you on the business journey, I know how you've overcome a lot of challenges. You're not like frightened to change. No. So when Paul first started with yourself as well, he was PT.
Yeah.
He then was one of the first ones to do the boot camps.
Yes.
I remember at the amphitheatre in South Shields, he had just hundreds of people doing the boot camps. He realised that the time was the right time to stop that and go into the coaching and the online and the events. Yeah. So you guys are kind of, and then he's done his tour as well. Mm-hmm. So you guys are very much in the realm of, we have to change, otherwise we'll get, as you mentioned before, we'll get consumed and other people will catch up. Yeah. So we're ahead of the curve.
Yeah. I think having a system, so we have a system that in our business where we're constantly reviewing, we do an annual planning meeting where we spend 2 days reviewing what we did last year, planning for the next year, and we've got a proper process that we go through with some really, really great questions. One of the questions, an example is, what do we not want to be known as this year? And we came up in when we did our planning meeting in January, Paul was like, I don't want to be known as, because he kind of was starting to realise he was becoming, because he talked about not drinking, because that's just something personal to him that he's chose to do. He was starting to people were starting to think he was an addiction coach. Yeah. So one of the questions we have in our review is, what do we not want to be known as a business this year? And it was, we don't want to be known as the addiction coach, and we don't want to be known as the mental health guy. So then our planning and our messaging and everything moving forward is, how can we communicate that how can we move away from that? And I think having that kind of process in your business where you're constantly reflecting on things and having powerful questions that you're asking about, where are we going? What is the vision? Where are we on track with the vision? Is the vision changed? Having a process in your business way, and so we do that annually and quarterly.
And who's involved in those kind of discussions and chats?
So we actually do it because we've got 5 people in the office, in the team. And so we get all of the staff involved. If I had a bigger business, I might not have everybody involved. But I think everybody in our team has ownership of a certain. So we've got Kath, who's client success. She's in charge of client success. We have Connor, who's in charge of social media and kind of advertising, kind of to a degree. So I think it's important to have the key staff members involved in that decision making, because they have a different perspective. They see things from a different. So Kath will see, she's speaking with clients on a daily basis, so she can kind of notice, oh well, these are the problems our staff our clients are facing, so we can tailor trainings and we can tailor content and we can tailor things to meet those needs. So we do that quarterly, and everybody, the key members of staff are involved. I think it's really important as a business to have that process, because I think a lot of people just kind of head down and just have no vision, have no real idea of what they're trying to create or what they're doing, and they just jump from opportunity to opportunity and chasing the money and and it's just like a hamster wheel. So I think having a process where you reflect on, what are we trying to do? Like, what is the point in this? What are we trying to create here? I think that's one of the reasons why we're constantly kind of ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
We're also involved, because we're a coaching business. We believe strongly in coaching.
Yeah.
So we have mentors, we have group programs that we're involved in, masterminds. One of our most powerful masterminds is, we get a lot from it because it has people from different industries in, and I think it's really important to be around people from different industries because you get different ideas.
Yeah.
It gets quite insular, I think, if you just, particularly actually finance, I think. So I am in a program called Strategic Coach, and they have a lot of accountants and finance people, and they use the same language, and they use the same, because it's done this way, it's got to be like fact finds and things.
Yeah.
And we had a client who came for a one-to-one, and who was spending like an hour and a half doing a fact find on the phone. I was like, why can't you just send that out with them, get them to fill it in?
Yeah.
Like, is a JAP form or a WooFoo form, or like, and he's like, holy shit, well, it's never been done like that. So just hearing from the way things are done and differently in different industries can keep you ahead of the curve.
I agree. Like we obviously we do some advisory stuff as well, and if the first thing that we do is send out a fact file of a profile of the business, and then what their goals, what their success stories look like, but more importantly what their pain points look like.
Yeah.
And I think if you're talking to somebody, they'll just something can get lost. But if they write it down. If you're on the phone with somebody, they're on the spot. They're not thinking about their answers, are they? So I think it's important to kind of send that away and let them sit and consume it and think about it in their own time. You get more from it. Yeah.
And then you can have a 10-minute phone call to discuss it and kind of make sure that you understand it.
Yeah.
But as a business owner, your time is valuable, and you don't need to be spending an hour and a half on the phone as you go through. It's a secretary job. You're literally typing in their answers on a form.
Yeah.
That's not what you should be doing as a business owner. Your time's more valuable than that. And I think as a business owner, understanding what your valuable tasks are in your business and only doing those things. And then when we employ people, we employ based on to buy back your time. So you shouldn't be doing £10 an hour tasks, and probably as a business owner you shouldn't be doing £100 an hour tasks. You should only be doing £1,000 an hour tasks. And the key to growing your business is to delegate all of those other and employ people based on what those tasks are, and kind of on a salary based on. So an admin person would be the minimum wage isn't £10 an hour anymore, but and you might then get to a point where I need a little bit more skill, and I'm willing to employ somebody on a bit of a higher salary because I'm still going to be able to reinvest that time on the £1,000 an hour tasks that are going to bring more money into
your
business.
kind of ethos, which will come on in a sec, is exactly the same as mine. In terms of you've got to get the right people in the right place to do the right things.
Yeah.
And what happens technically, in my eyes anyway, business owners, when we start, we get consumed by the full job that we forget to let it go as well. And we lose. It becomes kind of the labour of love gets lost, and it just becomes a man-made job. And you've got to get that out of that process very quick. Now, in fairness with you guys, you realise that from a very, very early age. So if we look at Paul's side of things, Paul will front these courses and do the events and things, but then he doesn't really get involved in the stuff that he can't get involved with, which is the right thing to do. Whereas business owners tend to try to do everything for control.
Also,
you've got to pass it across.
You've got to understand your skill set as well.
100%.
Like Paul's shit at some things. He's terrible. His customer service is really bad actually because he hasn't got patience. He's so he's a great coach. But then, for example, he shouldn't be spending his time giving people logins for trainings and things like. So you got to understand your skill set as well, and bear that in mind. There's probably somebody who you employ for minimum wage who will do those tasks better than you.
100%, completely agree.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about because you mentioned the meetings with you getting the team involved on a quarterly basis. For me, that builds culture.
Yeah.
If I was to say to you, what type of culture do you want in terms of your business? Would you have an answer? And would you have an answer as to how you build that culture?
So we spent a lot of time when we first set up the business creating some values. We've got we've got about 4 or 5 values so they are we do what we said we would do. Bless you. You've probably seen the t-shirts, do what you said you would do, which is, to me, is about integrity. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. Accountability. Lead by example, and that's probably one of the ones that rings the most true for me. Like I genuinely believe that if you want people to follow you, you have to lead by example. You have to display the behaviours. You can't be expecting things from your staff that you're coming in a grump. You're not on time. You've got to set an example. 100%. You've got to be you've got to lead, and you've got to display the behaviours that you expect of other people.
Your attitude reflects to everybody.
Yeah.
And you can't blame anyone else if your attitude's bad.
Yeah, I agree. So yes, we have values. They're actually on the wall, and everybody understands them. And as part of the interview process, we ask questions based on our values.
Are you able to share kind of what a value would be?
So one of this is do what you said you would do. So give us an example so an interview question would be, give me an example where you've had to strive against odds to do what you said you would do, even though it turned out to be more difficult than you expected. So within our interview process, we ask questions about values and the values of our business. We've got we give a fuck about people. Like obviously, it's important. So we use language like that.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Deliberately, because we obviously a lot of the coaching is around mindset, mental health, and it's to attract men who wouldn't normally. I think a lot of men associate mindset coaching with like hippie shit.
Yeah.
And one of our business, our ideal client is a normal businessman, like a normal man who doesn't necessarily want to buy into all that hippie shit.
Mm-hmm.
So we deliberately use language in our marketing, but also in our values and things like that, to attract the kind of people that we want to share our message with. So it's deliberate, and it offends some people. But to be fair, if you're offended by the language that we use in our market and stuff, you're gonna come in and you're not gonna stand 2 minutes with Paul. So it also repels people who wouldn't even enjoy. If they bought and they were offended by language, they would soon be asking for a refund as soon as they got on a coaching call. So it's deliberate as well. So yeah.
I mean, it is, because he's very loud, but that's how he projects, and people love that. Mm-hmm. Some people won't, which leads us on to a next question and a challenge, because obviously what you do is based on social media and putting yourself out there, which you have to do with it for the business and growth. There's obviously trolls. Mm-hmm. Now I've known kind of how it has affected Paul in the past, and I've seen how he also deals with it now, where he kind of fronts it and laughs at it and gets on with it. But as the wife, but as the business partner, and as a family, how does it affect you when you see some of the things that get written?
What I think people don't realise... Have you ever been
asked that question before?
No, I haven't. What I think people don't realise is that Paul's dealt with this since back in his bootcamp days. It's not something new. I mean, we've had to ring the police before in the past, because we were getting messages about, like, Max was 4 years old, and there was some weirdo sending messages about, I'm good at, like, I'm not even going to repeat it, but we've had to ring the police. It's something that we've dealt with for years and years and years, and we've used lots of strategies. We've used ignore it, we've used report it. So you've probably seen more recently, Paul's been calling it out.
Yeah, I've seen them.
And there's a lot of people kind of say, well, you should just ignore it. You're giving them a platform. And the reality is we've ignored that for about 10 or 15 years, and that's what we have done. But I think it comes to a point where if you accept it, if you don't call it out, it becomes acceptable. People haven't got a fear of being called out. I think there needs to be some accountability.
100%.
It's not okay. You wouldn't come up to somebody in the street and say something like that. And if it's not called out, I think Paul's strategy now was like, look, you have to be accountable for what you see on the internet.
Yeah.
You can't just, because he actually does have the skills. It doesn't bother him. It doesn't upset him because he's dealt with it for so long.
Well, that wasn't the case previous.
No, but because I think when you first start to get a little bit of fame or a little bit of a following on social media, you have to go through the criticism, and I think you have to maybe do a little bit of work on the fact that it's not you, it's them, and it genuinely is them. Whatever they're saying about you is as a reflection of what they feel about themselves.
But I can imagine the first time it happens, because if anyone reads any bad reviews about themselves or anything, you instantly look at yourself and you feel, oh, look at what have I done wrong here. And 100%, it's not what you've done. It's that they're just projecting their shite on you because they're probably jealousy.
Yeah.
The whole lot.
Yeah, and I think what you kind of have to understand is people aren't always going to agree with what you say. But the fact that if you put yourself out there, you have to be willing to a degree to get criticism. I think the difference between criticism and people not agreeing with you and straightforward abuse.
100%.
And I think that's what we need to call out. It's fine to not have the same opinions. It's fine to even have a little bit of a disagreement online. If you think one thing and somebody else thinks something else, you have to. If you want a following on social media, you have to be willing to get criticism. Criticism's different to full on. You should have killed yourself. You should have jumped.
Yeah.
That's
just for a bit of context.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul is taught this so much, but he did try.
So Paul has on social media. He posted a video about his struggles with his mental health and the fact that he was suicidal, and it's shot on the edge of a cliff where he's talking about how he found himself on the edge of the cliff. That video went viral. It's had something like 7 million views, and the comments on there, some of the comments are horrendous. Like, if you had any balls, you would have jumped. Like, and I think, there's Caroline Flack. There's a lot of it's not okay to say shit like that to people, and I think it does need to be called out. And like I say, there's a difference between disagreements and differences of opinion and conversations around things and just full-on abuse, and I think it does need to be called out.
I completely agree. Disagreements and critique can be taken in a very positive manner where then the right result comes, because it might be that you think, oh, look, I could have done something a bit different there. But what
I saw something recently on, Holly Willoughby.
Oh, yes, yeah.
The amount of shit she was getting off, that's horrendous. You look old, there's nothing constructive about anything. It's vile, and I think people really need to, if you I can't understand how people can put comments like that and not think, how would I feel if someone said this to me? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know, I think as a society we need to call it out, and it needs to stop, because it's dangerous, I think, getting into a place where that's okay. Yeah. Particularly with kids. We've both got kids round about the same age, and I think it's just there's a culture now where there's no accountability to what you say.
I completely agree.
When we were kids, I'm not condoning this, but you would get a clip if you said somebody something like that. And I'm not condoning it, and I don't think violence is the answer. But at least there was some accountability to whatever you said. There was going to be repercussions. You couldn't just say things and expect nothing to happen.
That's right.
And I think the only way now I can consider, particularly with the internet, is to call it out and publicly shame people for saying things like that and make them maybe think, oh, actually.
And as the business partner, forget the wife side of things in the family, but as the business partner because obviously there's two hats. Yeah. As the business partner who has to then look at the other business partner getting it, who is the face of everything, of course, how did you kind of make sure that the culture stayed the same within the business? Because it's technically like crisis management when one of these comments come up, because you think, oh shit, how's this going to react now? What would you then put in place? Mechanisms would you put in place as the probably leader of the gang in terms of, but not visible leader of the gang?
I think the majority of the time now, I trust Paul to deal with it in a way that in an appropriate way. The problem.
But that wouldn't have been from the outset, though.
No, well,
That's now.
I think the problem that we had before was when he was actually struggling with his mental health. It was a risk that he would lose his shit and put something out there that couldn't be retracted. I trust him now that he has the skills to deal with it in a way. It maybe still isn't necessarily the way that I would deal with it, but that's all right. People deal with things differently, and as long as he can justify his actions. I mean, you shouldn't really have to justify your actions against some of the things, but I think I trust him now to deal with it. And I think it might. I actually admire him for calling it out recently. He's brought attention to it, which people think it's more of a problem. But I think he's brought attention to the trolls, and people think, holy shit, like, you're getting trolled all the time. What they don't understand is he gets trolled. He's got trolled all the time for 15 years, and he's just ignored it, and he hasn't brought attention to it. And I think now he has brought attention to it. Maybe people think, oh God, like, Paul's getting trolled. He's always got trolled, and I think what you don't understand is everybody with a following is also getting trolled. Russell Kane posted something. Obviously, he's a comedian, so he's probably used to getting heckled. But I think if you ask anybody with a following on social media, they will get messages like that as well. And I think, I admire him for bringing it to the attention in a way. Although maybe as a business point of view, it might be like, oh, that, like you say, crisis management. I don't really see it as that anymore, because it's always happened. I feel like he's made the choice to bring it to people's attention and kind of deal with it publicly. So I kind of trust him now to do.
Let's move on to the kind of success side of things a bit. We've gone through a bit of the challenges there. Let's go on to the success. Now, we're a 7-figure business, which is mightily impressive from a lad from all the house and a girl in mortgage school and stuff. To get to a 7-figure business per year is an incredible feat, and with a small team as well. So how do we continue to grow? How do we look at new marketing visions? How do we stay ahead of the curve at the Empire?
So, do you know, it's strange because I didn't actually realise. I think because we're around people and we're in masterminds and things where they're doing more than us, that actually for me, 7 figures doesn't feel that impressive, which is one of the things I think, getting around people who are further ahead than you, being around people who you aspire to be like, rather than people who are bringing you down.
Well, what's the term? If you're the most successful, or what is it, the most knowledgeable person in the room?
You're in the wrong room.
Exactly right.
So, so for me, like, it's not. We set a goal to do 7 figures. 2019, 2018, we're about 300 grand then, and we did it like within 12 months. To be fair, we've been sat on 7 figures, and like our next goal is 5 mil with at least $1 million profit. But so always having another goal, I think, is really important. If the horizon should always be moving, I think. And we, like I say, we're constantly setting goals. Like we don't just have monetary goals, which I think businesses kind of get stuck in. We've got a goal of having 500 people in our program, because the impact that would, like, I think you also have to have a goal where, to keep you driven, it has to be more than about more than money.
Because it'll allow you to write the right content to continue growing the content, which that content then generates additional money. It goes hand in hand. If you write the same content, you might do 5 million in 1 year, but the following year it'll just fall off the cliff because there's no one else to kind of come. If you keep changing it, you'll get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So we have
goals that aren't just about money. Like, it's about impact and who we want to impact. And as a business owner, that keeps it interesting as well, and it keeps you passionate about what you're doing.
Do you have a target market? So in terms of, would you be saying, right, okay, and not specifically this, but targeting between 25 and 40-year-old men who are, I'm just picking on men for the minute, who are business owners, who are going through the mill. Is that your then do you have a niche that you think, right, this is who we're targeting, this is how we'll get them?
We do. So we actually, at the minute, since January, we've only been targeting men, although we have a women's programme that's got 100 people in.
Yeah.
Paul realised that, and we still have women buy, which is weird, even though all our lead magnets, all our marketing is for married businessmen, really, ultimately. But that's just because Paul is passionate about helping those people, and obviously he understands the struggles and he understands their language and what they're going through, and that's and other people will naturally who connect with your market and your message will naturally congregate to you. But you'll know, like, particularly with, for example, Facebook ads, meta ads and things, you can't target everybody. It's just impossible. It's almost like a niche, but it's just for marketing purposes because you can't get in front of everybody. It's like you have to have language. So we call it customer avatar. So you have to, like, it's actually one person. When you think about who's your perfect client, and you have a picture of them in your head, and then all of your marketing, everything that you do is targeted towards that person. And it doesn't mean that you won't work with anybody else. It just means that all your messaging and all your marketing and everything that you do is aimed around their pain points, everything that they need. And it just makes you more clear and passionate about everything that you do, I think.
Pain points is one of, at the minute, it's my buzzword at this moment in time, because the pain points, if you understand what someone's pain point is, and then you understand how to fix it, that's the marriage kind of made in heaven, really, in essence. So understanding what your target market is and what their pain points are is the key, which is where your customer avatar comes.
So we do like products or smaller programs, or for example, at the minute Paul's got a book coming out that's aimed at, so our main program is Alliance, and that the target market for that is married businessmen who want to get their shit together. Is the actual the full thing.
Phrase,
but then we have people who congregate to us who can't afford that program or who aren't businessmen, so we have smaller projects who that cater to those, so that we call them downsells. Paul's doing a book at the minute, which is
not his first year, is it?
No, it's not, but he's actually signed with HarperCollins. It's going to be a proper paperback book. The first one that we did, so he did a paperback years ago, and then he did an audio book during lockdown because they weren't printing proper books. And then luckily fortunately, I don't like to use the word luckily because that sounds like it's just potluck. He's got another contract with HarperCollins to do a paperback, which will come out, fingers crossed, in January. But that's kind of aimed at the lower market, where people are like kind of the entry-level mindset stuff, or people who just aren't quite able to invest in the higher level program. So I think understanding what your ideal client is, but then also having an understanding of actually there might be people who would be a great fit for this at some point, but they're not quite there yet. So how can we ascend them through? So having some lower end products that will upskill them, so that actually eventually they will be ready for this, is also something that we're conscious of. And
how do you also change the mind or change the mindset of someone that doesn't actually know they need the mindset changed?
That's the biggest problem that we have as a business, because you can't people. It's called interruption marketing, because people aren't Googling what we sell because they're not actively looking for it. So we have to interrupt them and talk about in my content and with social media content their pain points. So they go, oh, that sounds like me. Oh, I need that. Oh, I've got that problem. Oh, he's talking to me. Like, it's an actual real good like a marketing skill to be able to talk about those pain points and make it sound you're great at marketing if somebody's reading your stuff or listening to your stuff and they're going, they're talking about me, that's me, I need that. Whatever it is, I don't even know what it is, but I need that because he understands we often get people saying, this video was for me this morning, you've done your job. If you're getting comments like that on your content.
Keeping going with the success side of things, now I know you mentioned your target would be, say, 5 million turnover with £1 million profit, and that was obviously you would have discussed that in the January. But when we talk about success to different people is completely different. What would success look like to you in terms of business, life, family, etc.?
So I think that's why my ultimate goal is probably 5 million. I do not want a giant business where I feel complete. I mean, the business that we've got isn't scalable to it's based on Paul, and Paul's the coach, and it's not something that we can just go, let's scale it and sell it, because that's not the kind of business that we've got.
On that basis as well, have you ever given thought, because one thing that we don't really talk about is exit strategy, very often in fairness, because we all get consumed, and we'll come back to success in a minute, we get consumed in what the here and now, and that you just mentioned, so like technically for us, potentially we have the opportunity to scale and then sell on, but for yourself, when it is Paul, what is the thought pattern about how do you then build a nest for kind of to be ready when, I don't know, when Paul's 60, is he going to want to continue doing it? I don't know is the answer. What then, how do you think of what's next?
So at the minute, our strategy is cash collection, so making money as much as we can and building reserves. We obviously have some investments, and that's what we're going to have to do in terms of we don't have an exit. We can't sell what we've got. There might be certain parts to it that we can maybe you can do this bit, the business coaching, we could potentially get someone else in. But ultimately, we haven't got a business that we can sell because it's all based on Paul's personal brand. So it's basically make as much money as we can and reinvest it into things that when we're ready to retire, it can be. I kind of spread pots in various different places, and you're the best one to kind of advise people on this. But we have property investments, we have just some savings, we've got private pension that we're paying to regularly, so that we've got various different things, so that when we're ready we can go, actually, this is I have in my head an amount of money that I need in the bank when we're ready to go. Do you know what? This
is a massively important kind of topic actually that people don't tend to talk about, because we all talk about the success of here and now, but it's then what you do afterwards. So it's very similar to, say, I don't know, a professional footballer career. What do they do once they come to retire from that? Business owners do need to have that thought pattern, because if you're in heavy construction, you're going to find it hard to be in construction at the age of 65, 70-year-old. Okay, maybe it's in our side of things, it's a bit difficult, it's light work, but for your side of things, it's Paul's profile, and as long as Paul's profile is up there, great, but if that dwindles, you've got to then have option B, C and D, which is what you're doing, and a lot of people talk about that in fitness.
No, I know, it's not something, so
spread your risk.
So like I mentioned strategic coach before, but they one of their philosophies is to build a business that you don't want to retire from, and that's important to me as well. Like we've probably got 5 to 7 years before the kids leave school, and I've got a 5 to 7 year plan where by after 5 to 7 years we're in a position where we don't need to work and we just pick and choose what we do. So that we will still work because we won't want to not, because we'll be doing things that we're passionate about that we don't want to retire from. And that will supplement our income, but it will be things that we choose to do. It won't be based on let's make loads of money so that do you know what I mean? It will be it'll be from a different angle. It'll be like, what do we want to do? We might do an event here, we might do things here, but it'll be things that we choose to do. And that's my kind of 5 to 7 year vision, is let's make enough money so that when that comes we can just choose.
I think one of the big things to really take from you is the change management that you've gone through. And I'll go back to it, Paul, from PTing to boot camps to the online coaching to the events. These are big changes. We're not talking small changes in terms of there's a little tweak here. These are different careers in essence. And in 5 to 7 years time, who knows, it could be completely something different, and then we're successful at that again. So I think that the biggest thing that people should take from that is don't be frightened to change as well.
Yeah, I agree. One thing that I think Paul's great at is, I think if you're a good marketer, you can sell anything. And I think it's a great skill. And I'm not a good marketer, I don't have that skill. But I think if you have the skill of being a good marketer, whatever you decide to do, you could be successful at it. You can sell. If you can sell, you can sell anything. So whatever you choose to do, Like he could next week. I mean, he's just invested in a it's not testosterone. I don't know. There's Nutrigenics or something like that. It's called
Alphagenics.
Alphagenics, yeah. And I mean, in 5 years' time, he might just be doing that.
Yeah.
Because I believe that whatever he chooses to do, he'll be able to sell, and that's a great skill. And if you're not a good marketer and you're not a good seller, like, it's something that I would develop.
But one of the things he does do really well, he believes in it. And as long as he believes in it, he's passionate about it. So I've obviously seen his passion as well, so he believes in it, because when we're with him, he never shuts up.
I think that's actually, you're right, that's a great point. I think the problem that some people have is they're great marketers, but they just, they're into drop shipping and which is a great way to make money. But if you're not passionate about it, it's really difficult to how can you market something? How can you talk about, like, a lot of people are in for quick cash.
Yeah.
And you might be able to make a little bit of quick cash quickly, but the longevity of that...
It very rarely works.
Yeah.
You've got to build structure.
Yeah.
Structure is massively key. Having structure kind of generates sales, but sales generates structure as well. It does follow on. Yeah. We'll come back to the success side of things. So we mentioned what success will look like to you, but I want to go into more depth. So business, family, and then whatever else. What does it look like to you, success?
It's weird, isn't it? Because when you're young, like, when I was younger, I would be happy where I am now. Like, I would be like, holy shit, that's successful. But then when it doesn't, are you ever satisfied with what you've got? Like, I am comfortable.
Yeah.
But and for example, we could have a bigger house, but Paul loves being by the sea, so we don't. We choose to go on holiday wherever we want to go. I can't think of much else that.
I'll rephrase the question. What keeps you drive?
Yeah.
Because technically, I'm very much similar to you in terms of I'm very immaterialistic, I suppose. I've got a car that I've had for about 5 years. We haven't moved house for a while. Yeah. I don't really want to. I'm happy where I am. But what keeps driving you? I know what my drive is. What keeps driving you?
Do you know what's really strange? The lack. So I always say to Paul when we're doing things, don't mind if it doesn't work, but I don't want it the loss of opportunity. Like, if I feel like I haven't done my best, that's what eats us up. So it's not. Like, for example, if we do a sales campaign and we haven't followed up on every individual person, I'm like, I don't mind if they say no. But if we don't chase them and they would have said yes, it's the loss of opportunity. So I think the feeling like I haven't fulfilled my potential. And I think the more you grow, the more you see potential. Like, so if I grow a little bit more, I say, but I could be like that. And then I get there and I could be like that. And I think it's not something that I'm ever going to be satisfied with, as long as I feel like I'm moving forward. And as long as I feel like there will become a point, maybe when I'm like 70, where I'm like, maybe I'm all right. But there is no end to success. I don't feel like there's a point where I go.
There's no ceiling.
No, I don't feel like there's a point where I go, well, I'll be happy then. I feel like probably I wouldn't be happy then, because then I would be striving for something else.
And success is completely different for everybody, in fairness. Some have it financial, some have it as stability, some have it as just health. No one's right, no one's wrong. Whatever success looks like to you is very, very important.
It's funny you say that, because when I think about success, I don't necessarily think about money. I think about freedom of time, which is strange, isn't it? Like, I think...
Well, it's not, because the work-life balance that you have, because obviously I know the family, the work-life balance that you have is very, very good. Not everyone can have that.
Yeah.
People are consumed by their business. So let's kind of go into the work-life balance. And how many hours do you reckon you work a week within your business? So, I mean, actual work, not thinking about it.
I go to work 9 till 3, 5 days a week, and I work on a Sunday afternoon, but it's not work. It's planning. It's planning my week. It's making sure it's like thinking about what everyone else needs to do. But I like to do that on a Sunday, because I feel like, and I hit the ground running on a Monday.
Yeah.
If I was to be really honest, I probably don't need to work that much. But I don't know what else I would do. First of all, I don't know what else I would do. At the minute, my time's consumed. We've just brought on a new sales team, and my time is consumed a lot by making that work. And I feel like once that's working, I'll probably move on to a different project. Actual day-to-day running of the business and hands in, like in the weeds, I don't do a lot of now. I kind of just make sure it's ticking along and everybody else is doing their bit. I'm more of I build the plan, I decide what's going to happen when, and then I just check in and see whether or not it's happened.
Get the right people in the right place doing the right things.
And ultimately, that's where I see myself in the long run. Ideally, I'd probably like to maybe do 3 days a week. But like I say, at the minute, I don't know what else I would do with my time.
Exactly.
And I feel a little bit like, if I'm not at work, I could be doing something. Like there's definitely stuff that I could be doing. And
but you and Paul have built the empire to allow you, if you think there's another challenge that I'd like to do, to have a bit of flexibility without affecting the business. And that's probably the beauty of a work-life balance. Because I'm very much like you. If I wasn't working from whatever time, I'd be thinking, shit, what am I going to do? I'd probably vegetate on the sofa. I hate that. So technically, I'd much rather be at work. I'm very much similar to that. But you've built a platform to be able to drop in, drop out as and when you need. Because obviously you do a lot of travel as well. And you're very, very family oriented, which is brilliant. And you travel a lot with your kids because you've got the flexibility to do that. And that's the beauty of the work-life balance. As opposed to people saying, well, I only want to work from 9 till 1 and then go home, but do what? You only play so much golf, you can only do so much of this. It keeps the brain sharp.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very deliberate though, and I think that people think that it's not achievable when they're in their business 24/7. I think like it's very deliberate that I'm not doing I don't feel fulfilled by menial tasks. It drives us insane. I'm not very good at it. Like I'm quite like meticulous and methodical and that kind of stuff, but ultimately it rots my brain. I really need to be thinking about solving problems. And I think people get so drawn in to it. Something that I hear a lot with our coaching clients is it's easier to do it myself. People get drawn into the tasks that are, it's easier to do it myself. You just got to put a little bit of legwork in first of all to delegate those things, and then you have the freedom of thought to be able to think higher, think bigger. If you're getting involved in those menial things all day long, how has your brain got the capacity to think bigger?
One of my favourite sayings, and you've kind of just touched on it there, is, what's the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting change. So if you do everything and you're thinking, oh shit, you're getting consumed, how's it going to change? Same thing over again. So I would say for anyone kind of watching or listening, you're the epitome of a proper business advisor, because what you're doing is you're working on the business and not in it. And when you go to listen to all these business advisory, listen to all the podcasts of Stephen Bartlett, High Performance, whatever it is, the terminology is always work on your business and not in your business. It's very difficult for small businesses to actually get to that point. You're at that point, which allows you to then coach that if you wanted to do it, which in my opinion, and this is Paul, don't kind of take this the wrong way, but I think Lesley's more of the brains, and Lesley could do the business advisory yourself a lot better than potentially what Paul can.
But he's great at marketing, you see.
Exactly.
That's why we work so well.
And his kind of delivery is superb. So
effortlessly,
it works. But the actual skill set and kind of you to sit on a one-to-one basis with someone in a system, you've definitely got them tools.
And I think when you said it's very difficult for small businesses to work on their business, not in their business, something that I learned at the very beginning, which is something that I think's really helped with this, is the concept of time blocking, because you might not be able to spend your whole time working on your business, not in it. But can you say the first hour of every day, I'm going to go in, I'm going to switch my phone off, I'm not going to look at my emails, and I'm going to plan, I'm going to we talked about we do quarterly planning meetings.
Yeah.
So you've got a plan after your quarterly planning meeting, but you could just go away and then get consumed with phone calls, emails, and all of that. So I check in with when I said I work on a Sunday. That's checking in on that plan, and that's putting the important things in the calendar for that week to make sure it's. If you haven't got a system for that, that's working on your business, not in your business.
Yeah.
But so I make sure I'm checking in on that quarterly plan every Sunday, and I'm making sure that we call it the key 3. What's the key 3 things that you want to get done this week on your business, not in it, and plan those in first, and then, like I say, go somewhere. If you come into work and your employees are on you as soon as you walk, don't come in. Do an hour at home first, on the business, not in the business. Call it time blocking, really. So, or you could do, you know what, on a Friday afternoon, I'm just going to do the on the business things.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch off. I'm not available. My phone's going on divert. Somebody else is going to answer it. I'm not checking emails. I've got out of office on my emails, and creating the environment to work on your business. It might not be achievable that that's what you can do all of your time right now, but then
But bite-sized chunks.
But if you start just with 90 minutes a day or an afternoon a week, and then you can see the bigger picture, and then you can start eventually kind of getting to a point where you've got thinking time. Thinking time's underrated. People, nobody thinks. They just do. They're constantly they're in and they're like hitting the ground running.
On the meeting side as well, it actually, what you do on a Sunday makes you accountable for yourself. Because when what normally happens in a meeting, people will be around a table, they'll say whatever, they leave the meeting, nothing ever gets done. That was just a waste of air, in fairness. So for me, for a meeting, there has to be action points. So the action point, who's going to do it, when's it going to do, and what the review is.
We use Asana for that. Have you heard of Asana? It's Trello and.
Yeah, we use Trello.
Yeah. So Asana is very similar to that.
Okay.
So see. That's a difference in personality though, because if you've got somebody who's running that meeting, like Paul for example, who would go in that meeting and inspire everyone, and everyone would be ready to go, and then you'd leave and nothing would happen. Whereas I'm in that meeting going, right, okay, that's great, but when's who's going to do that? When's it going to get done by? How's it going to get done? So Paul's gets everybody wound up, and I'm sitting typing in the sauna, right, Matthew, you can do that, and Connor, you can do that, and that you have to have different, you have to understand, if my personality isn't I'm high C, if you heard of so I'm high C, and if that's your personality, if you don't have that personality, you need to make sure that there's somebody in that meeting who is going to be doing like an action taker, as opposed to just let's get everybody excited and then nothing happens.
Delegate. You've got to delegate it out, and you've got to hold them accountable, but also make yourself accountable. Because if you've got a task on there and you've got a time frame when it needs to be done, you've now made yourself accountable. It's
funny you say that, because you use Trello, we use Asana. The task goes red if it's overdue. And it actually, Paul says, I have to do my tasks, because if I don't do my tasks, I'm not leading by example, and it means that everybody else thinks it's all right for the tasks to be read.
I've just joined, I'm one of the trustees of the TCAP, which is the Time Coast Academy Trust, and to be fair, when you go into governance and things like that, we now have risk registers. Now, I'm not, a risk register is like whatever it's going to be, but they have action points, and it's the same colour coordination. If it's not done, it's red. If it's ongoing, it's amber, and if it's done, it's green. And you can see very quickly about, right, what did we say we're going to do? What's the time frame? Why hasn't it been done? And then you can hold someone accountable.
Yeah.
Which is, and that's not a case of like browbeating and saying you haven't done it.
What I also think is really important as well, which is something that I've had to do with the sales team, is getting them to agree. So rather than dictating the time scale, do you think that it's achievable that you could get that done by Friday? And if they agree and say yes, then they're bought into it.
Yeah.
Rather than dictating that needs to be done by Friday, then they're kind of off on the back foot already. When do you think you could get that done by? What's your capacity like? That's my leadership style, and I've had to learn from that. I'm not good at dictating, but if I can get your agreement.
There's loads of techniques as well. Have you read the 4 Decisions of Executive? I think it's called, or 4 Disciplines of Executive, one of the two. And it's called, they're called WIGs, Wildly Important Goals. So you list all your tasks, and then okay, what's the most wildly important? What do we need to do? Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's get these done. Not necessarily just go for the quick wins.
Yeah, because people do that.
Yeah.
They do the easy things. They spend all day doing the easy things, and none of the important things get done. That's why we have key 3. What's your key 3 for this week? What's your key 3 for the day? What's your number 1 thing? We have a 1 thing. We have and three other things. And I think so. Our staff are coached like that.
Yeah.
Their brain works like that now, and I suppose it's something that I've never even thought about. But if you haven't got staff who are thinking in that way, of course they're only always going to do the easy stuff first.
Right. Yeah. It's natural. It's the natural model. Yeah.
Yeah. The things that are easy, they'll not do the things that are uncomfortable. Like that. You need to ring that person. You need to tell them. They'll put that off all week.
That's right.
Aren't they? So we have in our Asana, we have the date, but we also have the priority of the task.
Yeah.
Something that I realised, we did that because we had a new girl who started working for us, and whenever Paul put a task in Asana for her, she'd do that first, regardless of how important it was.
Okay. Just
because Paul had put it in,
right, okay.
She would do his task first. And I was like, we need to have a way of deciding what the priority is. Because Paul would say, book trains for the UFC today, right? And there's so much other things going on in the business. But because Paul's told her to book trains for the UFC today, she'll spend 2 hours doing that and not the stuff that's actually really important. So we had to sit Paul down and say, well, you need to be mindful of that, and you need to put a priority on this task so that she's not just doing, because she's understandably scared to. You've told her that that's important today.
Yeah, 100%.
So we have also, as well as a deadline date for the task, we have a priority, high, medium, and low. And reality is most of that shit low. Low priority.
Yeah. But it's high to Paul, so he puts it on, and then she's panicking. Oh, I've got to do this as well. Yeah. But I make it look good in front of the boss, sort of thing.
Yeah.
To be fair, Les, this has been actually, I haven't gone through a lot of the stuff because we've just been able to chat and it's flowed through great. Thinking back though, what would you, let's say 20 years ago when this first started, if there's anything that you could have told yourself at that point, what would it have been and why?
It's hard, that question, because I actually just fell into this. It wasn't a conscious decision.
I remember the conversation that we had when you were still working at PGS or DDDs, and you were working into here, and then it was the conscious effort to say, right, this is going to consume and this is where I need to go. I remember that quite vividly. Actually, it was probably about 20 years ago when it all kind of fell in.
Yeah. So I think it would be number one, find something that you're passionate about. And set yourself a goal, have a clear vision. Don't let anybody tell you that it's stupid, because there's so many people who get talked out of doing something just because it's unusual, it's not normal. There's a lot of people that will bring you down and tell you it's a bad idea. Because it's unusual, it's different. And those are the best ideas. Those are the best things. So don't let anybody talk you out of your vision. Set goals. Get around people. There's a phrase that we use, which is who, not how. So whenever you're thinking about how am I going to get this done, who can help us with it? Like, that's probably one of the most important things. Who's already doing it? Who, not necessarily who can I copy from, but who can I learn from? Who can open doors for us, and just be ruthless with your determination. And if you believe in that's why I said you find something you're passionate about, because there is going to be times where it's going to be hard, and there's going to be times where you want to give up, and if you're not passionate about it, that's when you will give up. You've got to have a higher vision that will get you through the hard times, that'll make you go, you know what, I'm not winning here and everything I do is shit, but I'm still going to keep on going and I'm still going to get to the end because I believe in what I'm doing. And that's where, like, the mindset stuff, although I do business coaching with our business, seeing the results that people get from the change and the transformation in themselves, it just lights me up, and like, I would do it for free. If I had the money in the bank, we would do it for free. And I suppose having that passion and chasing something that's important to you. And
The big thing that you have never stopped doing is learning. So you invest an awful lot of money, time and effort into your personal development as well, don't you? And Paul's personal development. And you also have mentors that hold you accountable. Even though you and Paul are mentors for other people, you have mentors for yourself.
You've got to constantly be learning.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody in the world who knows everything. You're constantly striving for more information, more, like, it's probably one of my biggest values, learning. And to stay ahead of the curve, to stay in the marketplace, the most relevant spend in the marketplace for what you do, you have to have something different. You have to constantly be thinking and analysing, and would I buy this thing? Like, there's so many people don't even think, like, would I buy it? Like, if you wouldn't buy it, nobody else is going to buy it. You have to constantly be thinking about what you're offering to the marketplace, what problems do you solve, and just being like innovative and thinking outside the box, and learning.
That comes from learning though. What you just mentioned there about kind of, am I hitting someone's pain point, comes from you learning what their pain points are, or you learning what your pain point is from working with mentors and advisors, to then say, shit, I can now fulfill someone else, because if I've got this issue, someone else has. We can fix this.
There's never been more opportunities to make money, and I think it's constantly changing and there's AI, which is gonna, I mean, you probably in accountancy, that's probably a problem as well, but like, how can you embrace change how can you embrace change and use it to your advantage, rather than thinking, shit, this is gonna end us. How can I use it? How can I change what I do? How can I embrace it and use it to my advantage, rather than kind of feel even threatened by it?
Exactly. Even in an industry like accountants and tax, where compliance is going to become, a lot of it's done by AI. I mean, a lot of it's technically drafted up by now. Obviously shit in, shit out, obviously, but a lot of it's been done. I'm embracing that. I embrace change, because it'll get rid of potentially the menial tasks to allow us to focus on more beneficial tasks for clients, where we can break down their own pain points in a very similar way. So I'm like you, I kind of look forward to it, and I'm also with you. It's a big opportunity for people to make some good money in the right industries, but you have to think,
okay, so given that AI is going to do these things now, what are the pain points going to be now? Like, okay, all these people are spending all their time doing bookkeeping and all that. That's not going to need to be done now. So
what has to be done?
What has to be done? What they're going to, like, what is that going to create? Because there's always going to be a new problem.
Without doubt.
So obviously COVID created a massive kind of mental health crisis, and understanding that and embracing that, and like looking forward to, okay, then the cost of living crisis. There's never been more money to spend. People are just not spending it because the news are telling them there's a cost of living crisis. So just kind of constantly the market and people will tell you the market will change. You just need to think of how you can take advantage of that, rather than start to feel consumed by it, and just constantly keeping on ahead of things and looking for the opportunity.
Joey's Leslie, that's been the most kind of fluent, easy chat in about nearly an hour and a half that I've had.
Is it an hour and a half?
Pretty much, I think it is. It is an hour and a half. That has just been, it just flew by. I think people listening to that will take an awful lot out of it, and people listening to that will hopefully be latching on to you and now going searching for Lesley Mort as opposed to Paul Mort, because what you can bring as well, and obviously then bring it together. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Brilliant. And I'll see you tonight at skiing.
Yes.